I'm Aaron Davis, and you're watching Disney Channel. Aaron Davis here from FCP Euro. On my 2016 GTI, I was having flapper fault codes from my manifold. So today, I'm going to show you how to replace your intake manifold. The repair is also similar on Golf R, Audi A3s, and S3s. Some of the tools that we have here today are some ratchets from 1/2 inch all the way down to 1/4 inch, with also torque wrenches. We also have extensions from anywhere from 1/2 inch down to 1/4 inch. We have a variety of screwdrivers, and there's also a complete list of tools I use that you can find in the description below. First thing we're going to do is open up the coolant cap to relieve the pressure. Now I'm going to take the engine cover off and then move to removing the intake system. So we're going to take the hose clamp off for the intake. Comes right off. And now since my intake was aftermarket, I have an extra bolt that your stock GTI will not have. I have a secondary air filter that I have to remove as well. And just like your stock intake, you just pull up, and it comes right out. Now I'm going to remove the air intake duct. It is held in by 2 T20s. And then 2 T25s, and you have to remove the coolant line. Now I'm going to relieve the pressure in the fuel system by loosening the 17 nut on the high pressure fuel pump. It's also a good idea to wear glasses because you do not want fuel going into your eyes. Now I'm going to take the hose off of the high pressure fuel pump. Now I'm going to remove the belly shield held in by T25s. That'll remove the 7 T25s. I'm going to use this flathead to pop all the clips off. There's 2 of them right in front, and then you can just release it just like this. Now I'm going to be removing the coolant pipe held in by 2 T30s, one right here, and then I'll be also removing this clamp for this coolant line. Now we're going to remove the coolant crossover pipe that goes right underneath the throttle body. I'm going to open up this brand new CTA tool, the AA32, and it's perfect for these style for coolant clamps for Audi Volkswagen.
Ready?
Yeah, just spray it really quick. I could not get the clamp off, so I just sprayed it with a lubricant so I can actually go ahead and remove this hose. Now you're going to start seeing coolant starting to come down. Please be careful with this line because it is plastic and you do not want to break it. And same up here, I'm removing this line. And I'm going to push this hose out of the way. Now I'm going to disconnect the throttle body connector and then free up the throttle body hose. This clamp right here is held in by 7. Radiator tool to free up the hose. Okay. All right, first thing I'm going to do is free up the harness. Use a 90-degree hook pick. There's a pin in there. You just push it in, slide it out, push it out of the way. Then, this coolant hose right here, you're going to free up. Same 90-degree hook pick, and now it moves, and then I'm going to remove the map sensor. The trick you can use is a hook pick to get underneath the tab, and it will release. Next, we're going to remove the 2 T30s that are holding this throttle body pipe. And then now this T30 located right behind the map sensor. Make sure that they're all fully freed up. Next, we're going to remove the hose that's held in by a 7 clamp. You're going to use a radiator hose pick to get behind you. They know you're taking off. Okay. Now, the hose is free. Like I said before, make sure all the T30s are free from the block. And just yank down to free up that hose. Free up this hose from the actual bracket, and be careful because coolant is probably gonna spill out. And then work your magic. Snake this whole pipe out. All right, now we're gonna remove the intake manifold bracket. It's held in by a 13 right here. And then right underneath the intake manifold is held in by an M10 triple square. Now that I removed the bracket, I'm gonna wanna free up this wiring harness. And it's gonna be really on there. This is the bracket. Now I'm gonna remove the throttle body. It's held in by 4 aluminum T30s. A good trick is to use this light, have a mirror in your non-dominant hand, and then have the tool in your dominant hand. Because the very, very back T30 is hard to get to, so you utilize the mirror so you can see where you're lining up your tool. Same for this one. Use the mirror and get the other back T30. Now it's time for the front T30s. Now it's time for the very last T30. Hold the throttle body because when you take this last bolt out, it tends to fall if you're not holding it. Now I'm going to free up the wiring harness that runs underneath the intake manifold. It's good to use a hook pick to have this release. Pulls down just like that. This harness is also held in by the charge pipe. This harness is also held in by the pipe that runs straight to the turbo. So you want to free this up. Now I'm going to slide the connector out from the bracket, unplug it. There's one right underneath it. Same, pull it out. You unplug. There's also a connector right here, hidden right behind this harness. Nope, this is a gray tab, safety tab. So you pull it out, squeeze, and then release. Don't try to squeeze it with this tab fully locked. All right, there's another sensor right here. That's gonna be a pain to get out, but release that as well. Now that I removed all the wiring for the sensors, I'm gonna remove this bracket. They're held in by 2 T30s. This one you have to feel out because it's a really tight area underneath the intake manifold. On this bracket, there's another connector actually attached to it. Use a hook pick. There's a pin right here that you push in. And then it slides right out. Now I'm going to remove the oil filter housing. It's held in by 32. Just give that a few seconds to let it drain so we don't spill oil everywhere. You have to disconnect this sensor as well. Same thing, gray safety tab. You pull up on it to release. Now I'm going to remove the connector for the sensor as well. Move it out of the way. Now I'm going to remove the intake manifold. It's held in by 2 10s and 8 T30s. I'm going to remove the 10s first. The screwdriver is magnetic, so I'm going to use it to my advantage so I don't drop this 10. Now I'm going to start removing the 8 T30s. So out of that successful 6, when removing the intake manifold T30s, I really suggest you actually use a real magnet. Right now we can't find ours, so I'm doing the best I can. Now I'm going to loosen up this T30 right here so I can get access to the T30 to release the fuel line from the high pressure fuel pump. This T30 will not drop, it's held in with a bushing, so you don't have to worry about that. Just pull it up. So now I can snake it around and loosen up this T30. Now it's time to remove the intake manifold. An issue we just ran into was this fuel line that goes from the high pressure fuel pump to the fuel rail. You're actually gonna have to loosen it up at the fuel rail to actually get clearance to remove the intake manifold.
I haven't had that problem yet. All right. It's loose. Wasn't that tight? Huh?
So now you just yank up. And now we're going to remove this sensor. 2 lines right here. So you push that tab in. Now you got to push this tab in. And it's not releasing. Actually, remove this vacuum line. It goes to the runner. There's your intake manifold. Now the intake manifold slides that I took out of the cylinder head, I'm going to clean them with a razor blade because there's carbon buildup on this. So you just take your razor blade and you just scrape back and forth and you're going to see the carbon come right off. It's kind of a really bad noise. Now it's mostly gone. Take a little carb clean and just spray it. And you dry it off. Now I'm going to do the same for the other 3 remaining. Now, just like we just did with the intake manifold slides, I'm going to clean the surface area on the cylinder head where the intake manifold bolts up to, but you always want to clean the surface when you're laying down a new gasket. You just take a razor blade, just like the slides, and you just slowly start scraping. I don't really recommend using power tools like a cookie wheel on this because you don't want anything to gouge the aluminum, which could cause like a leak if there is a small gouge. And after when you're done scraping, I just take a rag with a little bit of carb clean or brake clean. I just wipe it down to make sure all the debris is off. And keep repeating the steps until you see no more debris. Now I'm going to take the intake manifold sides and put them in. They only go in one way. I'll put this one in backwards on purpose. See how it doesn't fully seat? That means it's not in correctly, so take it out, flip it 180, and it should sit fully flush. I'm gonna do the same for the remaining 2. And they're all fully flush, so now I'm ready to lay in the manifold. I actually had a fault for the intake manifold flaps, and they were not performing properly. First things first, I'm gonna install the fuel line. I'm gonna go ahead and put this side first into the high pressure fuel pump, and this one right here goes straight to the fuel line. So I'm gonna put the high pressure fuel pump one on first, and you wanna do this hand tight until you can get the bottom line on. Like that, don't fully tighten it. And the trick that I learned is before I actually install this intake manifold, I'm actually going to leave the nut off of the fuel rail because I was having difficulties removing my intake manifold because it was hitting the nut right below the flare. There's one sensor right here that's kind of a pain to plug in, so when I install this intake manifold, I'm going to plug this thing in first. So now just move everything around until you can actually seat your manifold. So I got that one plugged in. Make sure you're always pushing the gray safety tab. Now I'm gonna use my hand and I'm gonna go underneath the intake manifold and I'm gonna have to try and thread this fuel line in kind of blindly. And never force this on because the other fitting is brass and you can easily strip it and you're gonna have a fuel leak if you do strip it. So I got the fuel line started by hand. This little plastic vacuum line that kind of routes all the way to your vacuum pump. You're gonna plug it in or slide it on to the nipple, and that's on. Now the next step I'm gonna take before I actually bolt down the intake manifold is I'm gonna tighten up my fuel lines and make sure I can actually get access to this nut right here. Now I'm gonna take my stubby 17 and tighten the fuel line down here right by the fuel rail. This one, it's kind of a pain to get to. Okay. That one's fully tightened. Tighten the rest by hand up top near the high pressure fuel pump. And then go ahead and tighten this rail. I'm gonna slide in the top T30s first, not bolt them up. I'm gonna give them just a couple of threads actually. Hold the manifold a little bit in place, but also give it some wiggle room so you can get the bottom T30s in. And just tighten them by hand just like this, just a little bit. Nothing crazy. And you can use another finger to help you like line up the hole. There's a little access right here. I'm gonna tighten that in by hand just a little bit. You may find it easy, just like lift up on the intake manifold a little bit. Now I'm gonna put the remaining 210s right here and tighten everything. Now I'm gonna torque the 8 T30s and the 210s to 9 Newton meters from going inside out. So I'm gonna start with this. Make sure it's hand tight. I already have my torque wrench set up. That one's torqued. Same again for the one right underneath it. Okay, so the two middle ones are torqued. Now I'm gonna do this top one right here. I did this one, I'm gonna go over here to the left and do the bottom one. Because you wanna torque this down evenly. You don't wanna over torque it. It's just a plastic intake manifold. The one I just went directly across, I'm gonna go on top right here. Now I'm gonna go under here. Torqued. Now the last T30 I have to torque is over here, and then I'm gonna go and torque the two top 10s. Torqued. Last bolt. Torqued. Air intake manifold is installed, fully torqued. Now I'm gonna swap over this sensor that's located right on top of the manifold. I'm gonna swap over this little nipple. It's actually what secures your engine cover. Now I'm gonna take this bolt off right here. It's a T20. And you're gonna need a hook pick. You have to unhook the tabs right here. Evenly, and then you're just gonna pull up. One hook pick over here. Once the tabs are released, you pull it up. I'm just gonna swap it to its new home. push it down, make sure the clips are fully seated. I'm gonna go ahead and reinstall. Just hand tight. This is literally just plastic. Now, I'm gonna take the nipple off, which holds the engine cover. It's a 13. So the plastic intake manifold, there actually is no threads for this, so you make your own. Just be careful. Try to make it as straight as possible. Slowly tighten it. Have it not move around crazy. Because like I said, you're making your own threads. Okay, that's fully seated. Now, the sensor, plug it in, make sure it clicks in, push the safety gray tab down. Now I'm gonna install the bracket that holds in all these connectors. But first, this connector right here actually slides onto the bracket, so I'm gonna go ahead, 2 T30s. Now I'm gonna put the T30 through the bracket that's connected onto the fuel line. Just like that. Now I'm gonna tighten this T30 down, just like that. Now I'm gonna plug in all the connectors and attach them to the bracket so that they only go into one connector, so you cannot mix these up. Now I'm just gonna plug in this connector right on top of the manifold. Now I'm just gonna remove this stud. This is the stud that helps you bolt up the intake manifold bracket. It's just literally hand tight, you can take it off. I'm just gonna transfer it over to the new intake. Now I'm gonna install the intake manifold bracket. It's held in by one 13 nut up here. The 13 nut up here is 10 Newton meters. And then a triple square M10 down near the block. The triple square M10 is 20 Newton meters. The bracket's on. So these 4 holes right here are for the 4 T30s. And this pin right here is an actual dowel pin for alignment. It's actually built on the intake manifold. So if you line this up, get the T30s, you know this will be installed correctly. The 4 T30s are supposed to be torqued to 7 Newton meters. I'm gonna install a front T30. Make sure the throttle body is aligned. And that way the throttle body will not fall off the intake manifold to get the back T30s installed. It's a good idea actually to use a mirror so you can see where the T30s are located and they can help you line it up. And these T30s are tightened to 7 Newton meters, so not much more than hand tight. Now I'm gonna install my oil filter. I'm gonna torque this to 2.5 Newton meters. Now I'm gonna put the throttle body piping back in. I'm gonna spray this, help me slide it back onto the throttle body. And you have to go up and down. Either if you're on jack stands or on a lift, the throttle body isn't sliding on easily for you up there. So I'll plug this in. All right, now I'm just gonna pull up the throttle body piping. Spray some more carb clean around. Have this thing fully seat. Now I'm gonna tighten the 2 T30s that hold down this intercooler piping. The first T30 is located right here. It's like right behind this pipe right here. Second T30 is right behind your map sensor. Make sure this hose is fully secure in this. Clip it, like that. Plug in your map sensor, and then we're just gonna tighten up the boost hose right here. And make sure you slide this right back in the bracket. Now I'm gonna tighten up the throttle body hose up here. I'm gonna plug in the throttle body, and then I'm gonna plug in the coolant lines. And this clip right here, you just clip it to the intake manifold just like that. This bottom coolant line is located right underneath the throttle body. I'm going to soak this line up, soak the hose up so I can easily slide it back in. Make sure it's fully seated. I'm going to use the special CTA pliers. That's clamped down. Now I'm going to take the fuel line and hook it back up. Plug it in to the high pressure fuel pump. Clip the hoses back down onto the intake manifold. There's a clip right over here. Close this. Now I'm going to slide this coolant line on. Slide it on. So I can slide that right back on. I'm going to put the two T30s that hold this coolant line in place back into the manifold. First one is right here. It's right here on the side of the manifold, right next to your oil filter housing. And these are literally just like hand snug. It's nothing crazy, it's just holding the coolant line. Now, I'm going to install this air duct first. Now I'm going to install my aftermarket intake housing. Give that a tug. Just make sure it doesn't come loose. I'm gonna plug back in my secondary air pump hose to my aftermarket filter. All right. I'm gonna plug in this line that runs across. I'm gonna tighten down these two T20s to leave this right here. Now I'm gonna install this air duct cover. Has one big clip and then two T25s on the side. Now I'm going to top off the coolant. Now I'm going to put the coolant cap back on. Now I'm going to install my belly pan. That's held in by T25s. Last but not least, I'm going to install my engine cover. If you're finished with the repairs, it's a good idea to turn your car on and let it idle for 5 to 10 minutes, just to make sure that you have no coolant leaks or air leaks. And right now I don't have either, so I'm going to go for a quick test drive, and it seems like the car is healthy. If you liked the video, don't forget to like and subscribe. If you have any questions, leave it in the comment box below. Thanks for watching. I so hope this thing jumps timing, dude.